Welcome into Bengals Breakdown. I am Tom Downey, Stone, once again behind the scenes for you guys. Coming up on today's show, we'll discuss whether or not the Bengals offense is being disrespected, the idea of signing Clais Campbell, and a little minicamp preview before that gets going on Tuesday. Now, if you want Bengals minicamp coverage, we'll do some takeaways, news and notes coming out of it, winners and losers once that's wrapped up. Then like the video today. Help show our bosses that this is what you guys are looking to have. So like that video, which you should do for every video anyway. Let's talk Bengals offense here. 33rd team's Mosher ranked Cincinnati outside his top 8 offenses for the upcoming season. Now, look, it's all opinion-based. That's fine. I have curious thoughts on this. The top 8 offenses here. Chiefs at number 1. Okay, I get it. It's Mahomes. Eagles at number 2. They didn't play very well down the stretch last year. Ravens at 3, sure. Niners at 4, sure. Lions at 5, no complaints there. Falcons at 6. Put a lot of faith in Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles tear there, despite some good supporting cast and playmakers. Bills at 7. A little bit worried about that receiving core. Texans at 8, sure. Stroud played great last year. I get it some level. The Bengals kind of have to earn back some offensive respect. But they should still be top 8 for me. They played very well relative to expectations once Jake Browning came back. In fact, there were many facets of the game in which they were better with Browning than with the injured Joe Burrow. By the way, when Burrow and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase were all healthy together last season, as small of a sample size as that was, it was the number 1 ranked offense. That shouldn't be overlooked as far as I'm concerned. I think there are even other teams that got left off that list that have better arguments than teams like the Falcons and the Bills. I was very surprised by that ordering. I think the Bengals should be in there. Because as long as Joe Burrow's healthy, Jamar Chase is there, Higgins is there, the running game I think is going to be better this year. They're going to put up points in bunches. So do you think, and agree with me, and I know Stone as well, that the Bengals are a top 8 offense? That's the pinned comment on today's video. So if the ad comes here on YouTube, that's just fine. Take advantage of it. Head down there. Let me know. Y for yes, N for no. Let's talk this idea of signing Clais Campbell. Bleacher Report suggesting it. Now, they did list, I'll make note of this, Campbell as an edge rusher. He's played both. And at one point, they also pitched Campbell as a defensive tackle, which was a different article, but that's fine. He's got a very unique frame. And it's a positive as far as I'm concerned in terms of how he's able to be used with being listed at 6'8", 307. That's wide defensive end. That's 3 technique. That's 5 technique. That's a lot of different things he's able to do. And even though he is getting older, Campbell's still able to contribute as at least a rotation piece. And frankly, he was one of the best, if not the best, Falcons front play or defensive line players, probably behind Grady Jarrett, last season. Now, I'll say this. The man is about as old as you find defensive linemen in the NFL. You don't find any players, but especially defensive linemen, who are entering their age 38 season. He turns 38 September 1st. That is like 50 in most football years. You don't see that very often age-wise. But the play hasn't declined all that much. He's still been impactful. He's still contributed. He's been a good football player. I think I might play him more like inside defensive line. Bleacher Report argued, there's no depth behind Trey Hendrickson. But actually, isn't there? Now, we can argue if it's quality depth or not. Sam Hubbard does a key job for this Bengals team as a run stopper. He'll get some pressures too. I kind of want to unlock and unleash Miles Murphy. If the young guys are bad, okay, but you have to give them a chance to play first as far as I'm concerned. We'll see about Joseph. They've invested draft picks in Cam Sample, Jeffrey Gunter, Cedric Johnson. So if an injury happens, I am down to revisit this conversation to an extent, but I don't know how big of a need it really is at defensive end with the way this roster is currently constructed. A few more thoughts on this to come, but you can get the Amarius Mims rookie jersey over at chatsports.com/Amarius Mims. He is rocking number 71. We'll talk about him and Trent Brown a little bit later on in today's show, but I am very excited to see how he plays, whether it's in year 1 or in year 2 once it's on the field. I think he's going to be a great right tackle. I'd get his jersey. I think he's going to be a long-time Bengal. Get it today, chatsports.com/AmariusMims. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. Back to Campbell. In a bubble, I'm always down to add talent, but there is opportunity cost involved for a team that doesn't want to spend a lot more money than they have because they got that mega Jamar Chase deal coming up too. And I think it makes the most sense if you want to revisit that later in camp. Give your young guys the first crack. Let's see if Myles Murphy can be the guy we think he can be as a first crack. Because if he steps forward, if he plays well, if he's a good player in year 2, you don't need Campbell. You got 3 guys that can start between him and Hubbard and Hendrickson, who, by the way, is not going anywhere, despite what some outlets might think. And maybe somebody between Osai, Gunter, Sample, I actually thought played decently last year in kind of an inside-outside flex role. So give the young guys first crack. See how it goes. If it's bad in camp, if there's an injury, we can revisit. So should the Bengals sign Clais Campbell? Go ahead and get your opinions for me in the comments section. S for sign or P for pass. Let's talk some minicamp storylines here. First up, who's going to be absent? There are notable players we want to discuss here. First up, Jamar Chase is going to be here. I would be very surprised if Chase skipped mandatory minicamp, and frankly, that probably would be a little bit of a red flag for me. I'm like, okay, Chase wasn't there. He was present. He said he was going to be present, so why isn't he there? It is mandatory. I think Chase and the Bengals are both okay allowing the contract to wait a year. So we'll see how that part plays out. Now, I do also expect Trent Brown to be there. Because if you're not there for mandatory minicamp, what are we doing, Trent? Like, what? You're training on your own. What do voluntary mean? Okay, it's OTAs. You should be there for mandatory minutes. It's mandatory. You're supposed to be there. And look, this might not be fair, but there is a reputation that exists for Trent Brown that, hey, he maybe isn't always the doing things the way the coaches want it done. He can be a little vocal with displeasure at times. There's a reason why he was available for a 1-year, $2 million deal, basically, or $3 million, $2 million guaranteed, $3 million total, $4 million total. There's a reason for that. So show up, and at that point, it's fine. And I think it would actually be a fine thing for the Bengals, because almost a good thing, because they got Mims more reps. Now you'll see the breaking news: T. Higgins not President Camp. He's not showing up. He's not on our contract. He can't be fined. There's no chance he shows up. Higgins is not going to be there. He's not going to be there, I don't think, for the start of training camp. I think we'll see him at some time in August. Maybe he does the whole Jesse Bates gets the suite for the preseason game thing. What I am almost most curious about is how much throwing does Joe Burrow do? Because Zac Taylor says he made the mistake of, I mixed up my days. I thought you guys were here yesterday. He threw yesterday, and he was taking his off day. Okay, it's fine. There's always that little voice back here like, it's Burrow, it's injury. He's like, everything's fine, right? Coming off the wrist. He's looked good. But if Burrow, isn't throwing at minicamp, that's not a good sign. That means they're probably battling some soreness, which is to be expected, to be fair. But then we have to allow that to linger for a month and a half of how healthy is Burrow? How healthy is Burrow? So my guess, what the Bengals would like to do, he's going to throw on Tuesday in practice. He's going to throw on Wednesday in practice. And then we canceled day 3 of minicamp, which Zac Taylor's done before, as long as the practices are good, and then Joe Burrow gets his natural rest day. That might make the most sense for Cincinnati. We have daily Bengals talk, for at least pretty close to daily Bengals talk. We'll have even more as the season gets going. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/BengalsTV. Next up is, I'm curious which positions this team ends up looking towards to potentially finding more depth. You're in great shape at cornerback. I think you're fine at running back. More on that in a little bit. Receivers in good shape. Tight end's fine. Offensive line is fine. I'm okay with the spot at the defensive line. The area I'm like, see how things play out a little bit here, is cornerback. Because if everyone plays to their ability, Cam Taylor-Britt, DJ Turner, Mike Hilton, DJ Hill, we'll see about DJ Ivey coming off the injury, Josh Newton, Jalen Davis, that's fine. Those guys have spent time on an NFL roster. Technically so too is Alan George, by the way. But, the Bengals want more from Turner. All these different positions where they were disappointed by their play last year. Now, they added some more receivers in the draft, and at least one in Jermaine Burton. They added a new right tackle to replace Jonah Williams long term. They added a running back in Zach Moss. They threw a bunch of assets at the defensive tackle spot, bunch of assets at safety. They didn't really address corner outside of moving Daxton to the outside. I don't know if he can play there full time. We'll know more during training camp. And spent a 5th-round pick on Josh Newton. That might be the one spot to monitor, especially early in camp and minicamp as well. Finally, the opportunities at running back shakeout. I was totally fine moving on from Joe Mixon because he didn't bring me the efficiency, the big play stuff that I typically like to value in the running back spot. Those carries beyond 20 yards, 15 yards, really low for Mixon from a per touch perspective. Was not so much the case with Zach Moss. I thought that was a really cheap signing for Cincinnati. I think they got better and cheaper at the running back spot. And I think they can still give more run to Chase Brown. And oh, by the way, how does that RB3 spot shake out? Right? Is Travion Williams going to finally emerge in this Samaje Perine role? Could Samaje Perine be cut by Denver and be brought back later in camp? Wouldn't rule that one out, baby. I think that's a real possibility. Chris Evans, can Noah Cain or Collins emerge as a surprise UDFA type? I am most excited to truly see Zach Moss. It's minicamp. It's June. There's not a ton of stuff to glean. But I do want to make this clear. Although I am excited about Zach Moss in 2024, I'm not sleeping on Chase Brown. I was a big fan of his coming out of Illinois. I love that draft pick by the Bengals. Small sample size of explosive plays. I hope he gets more chances this upcoming season.